journaling time.
What's up, party people? Welcome back to Journal Party Live. I'm Alex Gallner. I'll be your host for this evening. As you trickle into here, be sure to say what's up. Let me know who's here. We've got an awesome guided journal jam sesh for everyone this evening. All right, got some people trickling in. That's good. We got Sharita is in the house. What's up? Hello, hello. Annie's here. Good. I'm not sure that our email made it out to everybody today. So hopefully people got the memo. Kathy Poo's here. All right. Give everybody a couple minutes to trickle in. There we go. Some people showing up. Good, good, good. What's up, Norma? How you doing? Good to see you. Let me know who's new, if anyone's new, so I can give you the spiel on what we do here. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna put the app QR code on here. Oh, Terry got her journal. Awesome, awesome. Glad you got it. Yeah, we've been having issues with our shipping partners. It's been nonstop with them. So fortunately, we found new partners who are going to be a little more reliable. But oh, it's heartbreaking to me when, we to break a promise, right? I think that's what it kind of boils down to me. Like, if we tell people we're going to send them something and then take money for it, and then they don't get that thing, that I would be mad. So it's been hard, but we're doing our best. All right, Cece's in the house. Lashandra's here. Very good. Cool. All right, so there's a little QR code on there. If you don't have the app, you should get it. It's awesome. We're adding a bunch of new stuff every single week. For the folks who have decided to take the plunge and join us in premium, not only do you get access to all these programs for whenever you want to do them, but starting, I believe, next week, we are going to be adding weekly Zoom journaling sessions. So if you like this, it's going to be even more interactive. And what we're going to do is, I think, a Monday morning session every week where we will not only journal together, but actually set some goals for the week, and then we can have like an accountability board. So you can say what it is you're working on or the promises that you want to keep for yourself, and we'll make sure you keep them. So on the next call, I'll ask, did you do what you say you were going to do? And if you didn't, we'll slap on the wrist, but all friendly and still good fun. But we've been having some requests for some more interactive type of sessions and accountability, right? Because everyone can start a journaling habit, but I think a lot of people start and then aren't able to keep it up. And it's not like journaling's hard. It's just the act of showing up for yourself, which is something that we've gotten pretty good at here. So check that out. We'll have some more news and announcements with that. But yeah, anyway, get that app. It's awesome to have, but you don't need it for tonight because I'll be streaming this evening's program for everybody. So all you need to do is look here. I'll read the prompts, and then the idea is just start writing. Don't worry too much about what you're writing. It's not every word that you put in your journal has to mean something super profound. I think just the act of prompting your mind will often produce the answers, even if they come days later. And that's often my experience. So tonight's program, lives in the shadow work labs section of our guided journaling platform here. And I wanted to add some more programs to this because I think we were doing some pretty good work here. Just need to fill it out a little bit. And I put this program together, tonight's program. It's called the Inner Critic. And the reason that I put this one together was, well, I realized that when certain behaviors kind of show up in my life, in like the non-healthy way, it kind of prompts me to take a closer look at those things. And I think that's where shadow work is particularly helpful, especially in the case of the inner critic. I sometimes catch myself being not so nice to myself. There's that little voice. I think we all have it, and maybe it's not a voice for you. Maybe it manifests in some other way. But for me, I catch myself saying some not so nice things. Like, instead of, like, let's say something didn't go my way or it was a failure or something like that. If instead of looking at that failure objectively and what I can learn from it, if instead I start saying nasty things to myself, like, oh, you're no good at this, or you deserved that, or something like that, that's when I take pause, and it's like, okay, this is where some shadow work could really come into play, because these things, these automatic responses that we have in our minds and our consciousness, they're not there just by chance. The evolution itself is this grand process where we've earned these things over millions of years because of their utility. They are there to support us, but when they're not supporting us, that's when it helps to bring a little bit of conscious awareness to the issue, and turn it into a healthy process that actually serves us. And so I prepared a little bit of a slide here just to kind of act as a primer for us, although it looks like I don't know if you can even see that. It's so small. Anyway, the inner critic and shadow work. So the inner critic is that persistent voice in your head that points out your flaws, doubts your abilities, and judges your actions. It's the "you're not good enough, you always mess up," or "why even try" whisper that creeps in when you're vulnerable or stepping outside your comfort zone. In shadow work, the inner critic is a key figure. It often acts as the gatekeeper to the parts of ourselves we've hidden away, our fears, insecurities, and unmet needs. This critical voice usually forms as a defense mechanism shaped by past experiences and social conditioning, trying to protect us from failure, rejection, or discomfort. But its strategies are outdated and unhelpful sometimes. What was once a coping tool can now hold us back from growth, joy, and self-acceptance. Shadow work invites us to turn toward the inner critic with curiosity rather than resistance. Instead of trying to silence it, we explore its roots. Where did it come from? What is it trying to protect? What parts of you has it pushed into the shadows? In this program, we'll shine a light on the inner critic, not to fight it, but to understand it. Through reflection and compassionate inquiry, we'll uncover the hidden fears beneath its harsh words and begin to reframe its messages. This process helps us reclaim the parts of ourselves we've rejected and create space for a new inner voice, one rooted in kindness, wisdom, and self-trust. So shadow work isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about embracing all parts of who you are, even the ones that feel hard to face. The inner critic is just the starting point. So with that, get your journal ready. It's time to get started here. So I'll count us down, and when you see the prompt, just start writing. All right, first prompt: meet your inner critic. What does your inner critic sound like? Describe its tone, language, and common messages. Tracing the roots. When do you first remember feeling self-critical? What might have shaped this voice? Wow, I went surprisingly deep with that one. Pretty good, though. The next one is the critic's hidden purpose. What do you think your inner critic is trying to protect you from, even if it's unhelpful? Impact check. How has self-judgment affected your decisions, relationships, or self-image? Next one is fact versus story. Think of a recent self-critical thought. What are the actual facts, and what is the story you're telling yourself? Flipping the script. Take a harsh thought you've had about yourself and reframe it with compassion. How does that feel? The voice of kindness. If your best friend heard you being self critical, what would they say to support you? Patterns in criticism. Are there specific areas of your life where your inner critic is louder? Why do you think that is? Permission to be human. Write about a mistake you've made, but this time without judgment. What lessons can you find? A new inner dialogue. Imagine your inner critic has transformed into a wise, supportive guide. What would it say to you now? All right, everybody. How'd everyone do? Hopefully good. Now it's on to the fun part of the evening where we get to discuss our insights and all the mean things that our inner critics say to ourselves. Um, Man, this one was, I went a little deeper on this one than I thought I was going to. Sometimes because I'm like managing the whole experience, sometimes it's not always easy for me on these live sessions to get fully immersed into a prompt. And that wasn't the case with this one. So, it was really nice to go deeper than I thought I would, if that makes any sense. Some really interesting things came up for me. I mean, one that was interesting was the prompt that was talking about like when you first even remember recognize that you had an inner critic, and what was it saying to you, and that was an interesting one for me, because it immediately the first thing I thought of was back when I was just a little kid playing sports, and I think that's like the first time that my inner critic might have shown up, because I mean, I was kind of like a goody goody as like a kid. I always academically excelled, and I got a lot of attention and a lot of praise for that, and a lot of recognition. I mean, of course, my parents would like yell at me if I did something bad, but I was rarely bad, so I didn't get a whole lot of like negativity coming from my parents in that sense, where I felt like I was inherently bad or anything. But like, I think the first time that that inner critic voice showed up was like in sports where, I was kind of like a smaller kid, and, I not gonna lie, I'm not the most athletic guy around. I did all right in a couple of sports, but, my parents signed me up for everything. And I was just having these like little sound bites playing in my head about like how like, oh, you're gonna strike out. Like when you get up to bat, you're gonna strike out, or just this fear, like it's gonna hit you. Because for whatever reason, I used to always get hit by pitches when I was playing baseball. Um, Not sure that's like an inner critic thing, but yeah, just this idea, like you're not good enough. Like that was like the first time that showed up to me, or for me rather. And then I was realizing is sort of like a through line through all of these prompts for me, was just, I guess, this idea that inner voice was there trying to prevent me from the criticism of others. And I started realizing how much I value and perhaps overvalue the approval of others. And I talked about this a lot. I mean, one of the things that I subscribe to, or that there's kind of like three main things that just mess people up, right? The need for approval, the need for control, and the need for safety and security. And I mean, all of those are pretty delicately interwoven here, but a lot of it boils down to this people pleasing and the need for approval from me, right? So almost like as a way to protect me from social embarrassment, and like the implied insecurity that brings, my inner critic would swoop in and try to find ways to control that. And sometimes, it's constructive. Sometimes it's saying, hey, you need to, you need to be smarter about this, or like that, the way that you approach that, wasn't ideal, and here's what you can do. But I think where it's detrimental is when it's saying just things like you're not enough, or yeah, you shouldn't have even tried, and it's just like these awful things. And I think, like, again, a lot of it just like kind of plays back into like almost like jumping out ahead of what I guess in my mind would be a worse scenario, which would be somebody else saying these things to me. And it's a weird thing to impose that upon yourself, when it's not necessarily forthcoming. I think forthcoming is the word there, and it's not necessarily what is coming down the pipe for you. So pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, a lot of weird memories coming up here. I mean, yeah, I must have sucked at baseball. That was like a big one where I'm like, oh, I remember I was saying mean things to myself. Yeah, but pretty good stuff there. It was nice, kind of flipping the script and being a little bit more compassionate. It was interesting to put myself in the shoes of my inner critic and actually speak with a little bit more kindness and a little bit more compassion. And then also to, it's always so easy for me to model like what my friends would say, or somebody that I know really well. And that's why I often put these prompts in here that, you'll notice a lot of these programs have prompts like about like, well, what would your most supportive, family member or friend say? And it's because it's so easy to jump into their headspace and give you like a different perspective. And so that one was super powerful for me as well. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how like in like an attempt to avoid shame, I should say, use I statements. I shame myself. Like what a weird construct, right? But to shine a light on it, it's out of the darkness, and now it's not this thing that is, throwing rocks at me from the shadows, but it's this thing that I can interact with. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm, going to kick it out. Like I think like some of these things are there to be useful, to help you out. But nobody needs to be shaming themselves. So very interesting and enlightening session for me. So let me see what everyone else said here. Got Nahal says, They were amazing and so timely. I just came off a horrifying argument with my daughter and I needed some deep reflection. I think I am a good person. Yeah, I think you are too. Look, good we're I I do believe that people are inherently good. I just think that we're all also prone to, you know, just like negative autopilot, negative, whether it's like the self-talk or, whether it's temptation, from our baser instincts and stuff like that. I mean, we are prone to avoid pain and seek pleasure, but sometimes I think the wires get crossed, and we start telling ourselves different stories that are very far from the truth. And yeah, just having a little bit of perspective and a little bit of grace, a little bit of compassion can go a long way there for sure. Kathy says, my inner critic isn't usually in my own voice. That's interesting, but from those who have traumatized me as a kid and a late teen. It first showed up when I was 8 or 9 years old. And that it's interesting. I wonder if that's a shared sort of thing. Like, I wonder if other people can resonate with it showing up at around that time. It's probably something that's developmental. I mean, I don't have enough of a developmental psychology background to provide like a hard stat for that. But I mean, yeah, like that was around the time when I was started playing like these sports that I was talking about, and like worrying about what my peers thought about me. And it's also like around the time when like your relative performance starts to matter in any way, shape, or form. So pretty interesting. Jen says, this hits so hard. You're making my feel some deep feels tonight. Yeah, well, it's good. You can't be afraid of these things. And on the other side of all of this, in my heart, I believe, is freedom. If we're able to, to let go of these things that we hold on to, on the other side of that is whatever we want in truth. So Kathy says, my inner critic made me isolate myself from everything and everyone to protect me from their judgments, but it also hindered me from socializing without holding my truer self back because I wanted people to like me. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. That people pleasing and wanting to show up in a certain way. And it's like the irony is, it's like, it's not for you, it's for them. And like, what, but you can't control what other people are thinking. Like, you don't even know what they're thinking. I mean, unless they tell you. And maybe that's how some of this stuff forms, right? Somebody says something nasty to you and you start repeating it to yourself or believing it. But yeah, I think with all this, like, I don't know that there is any, when we start to get into our own stories and stuff like that, I think like, I don't know that there is necessarily a truth other than like, that is not the truth, right? Like there are so many more things at play, and like the best thing to do is to just maybe detach and let go of those stories that we're telling ourselves, good or bad. Just because, at the end of the day, they're stories that we're telling ourselves to, and maybe they're useful. Like it can be useful, but I think that like ultimately we have to acknowledge that the greater truth is just so much more vast and so much more nuanced, and to act like as human beings, we can fully ascertain all of that. Like it's not, it's not the truth. Mary Kay says, guys, my inner critic is such a jerk. Yeah, I wrote that down in mine too. Like, and I think we've talked about this before as well, and maybe you guys can get where I'm coming from on this. But like, I've always sort of identified as like an intellectual. I think probably a lot of you guys do, as the kind of people who write and think about these sorts of things, head of your topics and stuff. But like, one of the caveats with that, one of the things that could go wrong with that is that, if you pay too much mind to that and you start to believe everything that you say, that your mind says to yourself, well, you're gonna have a bad time. Like, my mind can be such a jerk, and if like everything that it said was true, I don't know what I would do. But thank goodness it's not. And thank goodness I have supportive people in my life. Thank goodness I have practices that help me ground and get closer to a state of well-being. It's important that we lean on these things because, yeah, like the mind, while it's like the coolest tool ever, I think it's so cool that we can prompt ourselves and get all these amazing deep insights, and the things that it remembers, the things that you feel from all this, like super cool and definitely part of the human experience. But at the same time, it can sometimes be a jerk. And if you start over identifying with it, then it can be problematic, I think. Annie says, I think that a lot of people who were around me put part of my worth on my weight. And I believe that I have a difficult time doing the healthy thing because it means that there will be an unfair worth placed upon me for something that has nothing to do with who I am and what I contribute to the world. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting perspective too. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I was talking about earlier was more like on performance, but I totally get that. I mean, I was a chubbier kid growing up, and talk about inner critic. Like I mean, I joke about this with my fiance, but like even before we lived together in her house, I created what we called my shame corner, because like I caught myself sneaking snacks and like hiding in a corner so like no one would see me eating these snacks. And like, where does that come from? Well, it comes from, probably whatever, whether it was like some, a parent or, somebody who was, shaming you for that in the first place. But then, wanting to get out ahead of that, right? Like to hide it. But then also like while I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, like you shouldn't be eating that Oreo. Whatever. I mean, crazy stuff, like these things that we're pulling into our experience. And like, me eating an Oreo in the corner has nothing to do. You're right. Like it has nothing to do with who I am and what I contribute to the world. It's just something, I like Oreos. What are you going to do about that, right? But like we start to like attribute these things that are just such, like, has nothing to do with anything that like really matters or really has value. And look, obviously we all need to take care of ourselves, and so it's a good idea to have your inner critic like be constructive. Like, okay, like, hey, maybe we'll, instead of the Oreo, I'm gonna reach for an apple right now because I know how that's gonna make me feel, and this is my life experience. Like, then you're taking like real information into account and like really using it to make yourself better, making better decisions. Like I think that's good, that's important. But like when you're just like, oh, you're such a fat ass, like that's what I would say to myself. Like in my head I'm saying that to myself, and like it's crazy. I don't know, wild experience. But it's good for us to shine a light on these things. It's good for us to create awareness with these things, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who are writing our stories. Like literally, we are writing our stories, and that's one of my goals for all of us, is that we can cultivate enough conscious awareness that we can write a story, that like live a life that's worth writing about, right? So yeah, cool share. I mean, I definitely, I know people struggle with that, on both sides, right? Whether it's underweight, overweight, whatever. Like, there's just so much baggage around all that. Mary Kay said, I am cuddling with my baby girl right now. If I wouldn't say it to my beautiful little chica, I am going to work on not saying those things to myself. That's nice. What's the Bambi thing? You don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Something like that. Yeah, I gotta work on that. I can be like, just real talk here. Like, I can be a jerk to myself. I can be a nasty critic to other people too sometimes. And I think that sometimes I tell myself, oh, like it's good, it's tough love or whatever. But like, I don't know. Like, if I'm honest, yeah, I could be saying nicer things to everybody else as well. Norma says, my inner critic seems to rehash mistakes I made from ages ago. Ooh, yeah, I feel that. It makes me feel like those that were involved still remember it. I highly doubt that mistakes I made 30 years ago are remembered by anyone but me. Sometimes I hear my mom's voice, since she always said, what will the neighbors think? Ooh, whoa, the weight of that one. Yeah, it made me feel like people were always watching and judging. And you know what? Maybe they are. Like, honest take. I catch myself judging people all the time, and like hopefully we can have enough wherewithal to try to get out in front of behaviors like that and stop those sorts of things. But the other thing is, what are you going to do? Ask these people? And like, that's like a weird thing. Like, I think like ultimately, gosh, I've heard this expressed in different ways, and it's had a hard time landing with me. But the idea here is that, like well, first off, who cares what other people think? And also maybe it's not our business what other people think. Like because like we can't control it. I mean, I have a hard enough time controlling my own thoughts, right? And I mean, the other thing is, it's like, well, I think that probably closer to the truth is that like people probably think about you and care about things like that you're doing like way less than you think, right? There was like a meme I saw, it was like a comic or something like that, where there was two people where like I think it was like somebody going to like a public place, and one person's just like oh, like they don't care what I'm doing, or like and then like there was another person who was like, they don't care what I'm doing. It was like this whole liberating thing, right? So I mean, I guess watch how you're judging that yourself, and ultimately you have no control over that. I mean, like, yeah, you could try to like bend over backwards to try to influence or control other people's thoughts about you, but like again, without actually being in their minds, like, you have no idea. And so it's I think it's erroneous to try to people please and control all these things. And like, the reality is, like, yeah, they may be judging or whatever, but like ultimately I think the only approval you can control is the approval that you give to yourself. And so I was playing around with that in some of these prompts, like where particularly the one where the inner critic it becomes a guide and is a little bit more compassionate and empathetic. And with that, I was having sort of a conversation with it and saying, like, hey, let's, instead of like we both want the best for me, right? So how about, instead of like you just being mean to me all the time, how about we team up and use this greater part of ourselves and like all this wisdom that we've accumulated to actually be constructive, to try to identify the things that we can control. Like, sure, people may think I'm ugly or short or whatever it is, right? But like, I can't control those things. What I can control is how, I deliberately and intentionally show up in this world, and what I'm creating, what I'm putting out there. And, sometimes, like, look, that may miss the mark, but like, when it happens, instead of beating yourself up about it and then searching for answers that you don't have, and then beating yourself up because you don't have those answers, and then starting that whole crazy loop, like, how about we just be friends and use what information we do have to like figure out what we can control and then work on that, and easier said than done. But I think the process starts with this, right? It's just that self-awareness. Patricia said, you did not fail at this or that. You chose to take a better path for yourself, a path of healing. That's a nice way to put it. Still a chubby kid at 40, lol. Yeah, I'm turning 39 this month, and I managed to lose quite a bit of weight as I'm preparing to get married. It's also not lost on me that this may be like the best shape I'm in for a long while. But judgment aside, it's interesting. Like, still a chubby kid at 40. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I brought up Oreos earlier, and I think that was just at the top of my mind because I was like sitting in my den last night just going to town on some Oreos, and I was I had all the negative self-talk about it, but like you know what, they were good Oreos, and I'm happy I did it, right? And proud. Awesome. Kathy says, my new dialogue screams, breathe, you got this. Your voice matters, especially to yourself, but it'll help someone else while healing yourself. Ask the questions, answer the questions. That's you growing. You got this. Yeah. We all have to be advocates for ourselves. While it's great to have people who in your life who can cheer you on, and be in your corner. First off, they're not always going to be there, and before you even get their input, there's going to be you there sitting inside of your whatever experience you're having, and you're trying your best to make it okay in there. We got to find ways to advocate for ourselves and to reaffirm our own value. And just by virtue of you being here, and my belief and opinion is that you matter. This is too cool an experience for us all to be sharing, for you to not matter. And anyone who's ever lost someone who didn't think that they mattered knows that they mattered for sure. So yeah, we gotta stand up for ourselves, and we've got to do right by ourselves. Jen Thompson, literal author too. Hashtag Alex said it best. Awesome. Mary Kay said, I heard a quote that says, what other people think about you is 100% none of your business. Yeah, that's the thing that I've heard too. I don't know where that came from. I've probably heard it through 30 different self-help gurus or books or whatever. But, I think true wisdom bears repeating. And that was that's a quote that I've sort of struggled with, because it's well, it is my business. I want to know, I care about what they think, but that's the problem. Not to say that you want to be a jerk and, ruin anyone else's experience, or, create, or put something out there that would have people have reason to dislike you or think negatively of you. But we just have no idea about all that. And so it's just, in terms of things that we can spend our time on, it's just, there's probably a lot of other ways we can spend our time more effectively. Marissa says hi Marissa. Jen says, help each other get through this. Can we send you wedding Oreos? Yes, send all the wedding Oreos. Oh my gosh. So side share, I just this past week I went down and sampled all the food for the wedding, and man, I've got some real cool stuff. So I'm gonna have an oyster shucker in the cocktail hour. That was one of my things that I wanted. And get this, I'm having a Choco Taco Bar at my wedding. So I don't know if you guys know what the Choco Taco Bar is. Recently, it was discontinued, although maybe they're bringing it back to much fanfare. Anyway, so having the catering company create they're going to be creating taco shells that they're going to dip in chocolate. So chocolate dipped taco shells that they're gonna pipe with ice cream, and then there's a whole topping bar at the froyo places, how you put all your toppings on and stuff like that. So Choco Taco Bar. And then right, talk about my inner fat kid. They had a slideshow playing in the background, and then I see that they make homemade donuts, when they fry them up and then they shake them in the powdered sugar or the cinnamon and stuff like that, and it smells amazing. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. They put them in a little bag for you. I was like, I want that. So yeah, it's gonna be good. I I wish you guys all could come. That would be pretty awesome. But if it's good, we'll keep the catering company in mind, and for our first the first time we have our one of our retreats, maybe we can have some of these treats show up. Treats for the retreat. All right. Let's see. Nahal says, I think Anthony Hopkins said that. What people think of me is none of my business. Wise guy. All right. Can you crash the wedding? Yeah. Some love for the Choco Taco. I'm glad you guys get it. I had it. There was two sorts of reactions to that when I put that out there. It was either what's the Choco Taco, or yes, that is the best idea ever. I'll try to get some pictures of it, and I'll share it with the tribe once that happens. Yeah, next month, you guys. I'm getting married next month. Crazy. Anyway, look. This life experience, it can be awesome if we allow it. And that's not to say we're not going to have our hardships, but man, isn't it easier when we cultivate this awareness, when we find beautiful, wonderful people to share this experience with. It's awesome. And so, guys, I want to thank you once again for being here this week, for showing up week after week. It really, it really helps me keep doing this. Just, having you guys, being able to serve you in this way, and then also being served by you guys. Just hearing your collective wisdom and week in and week out is awesome. I'm just so proud of what we're building here together, and we've got a lot of really cool stuff in the works, guys. I'm bringing back the 7-day daily journaling challenge. We're adding some fun bells and whistles to it, and I think we're going to make it free this time. We're probably going to have like a deeper version of that with all sorts of crazy bonuses and stuff like that. Got to make it interesting for the tribe. Yeah, if you guys are sort of my regulars, my ride or dies. So if you all are into that, I'll probably be reaching out to some of you individually to see if you guys would be interested in sort of piloting and test driving some of the things that I'm building here. Some of the things. Yeah, I said that correctly. Some of the things that I'm building here, just to make sure, that what we're putting out there is great, and that I'm not just relying purely on my inner critic, and I'm giving permission to, get some constructive criticism also from the people that are really our people here. So yeah, if I reach out to you, well, I guess just be on the lookout for that, because I'm going to try to find some people to help pilot all those programs. So got that in the works. Super Bowl's this weekend, so hope you guys have some awesome plans. Anyway, I got to get back to my loved ones here in my house. So thanks again for showing up, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, rest of the